Welcome to Elements of Community, a podcast about discovering and exploring the elements of community. I am Lucas Root, and each week we talk with a community leader about what makes their community thrive and bring value to both the leaders and the members. Join me as we unpack the magic of the elements of community. We're back. I'm actually really excited about this, and probably part of this story is going to include how we met and how we really connected. But it's been a long time in the making. It's been us dancing the dance of a relationship. And like some of my other really close friends, I've never met you in person, Delanea. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for the beautiful energy that you've been able to pour into the world, some of which I get the benefits of. And would you like to tell our guests a little bit about yourself and this beautiful energy that I'm talking about?
For sure. So thank you so much for such a kind intro. My name is Delanea Davis. I'm in Connecticut. I am a rune reader. I'm an international author, and I'm a co-founder of a couple of businesses with some other really amazing humans. So I never know what to say when people say, right? And there's a lot of hats and I love them all. I feel like all the businesses are my babies and I never know which one to pick first. But today I thought I'd start with the rune reading part since that connects to how you and I met.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Amazing. We also just discovered in opening up this conversation that you and I have really actually known each other for 364 days.
Indeed.
Not just connected, we connected longer ago than that, but we really connected 364 days ago, which is very cool.
For sure. No chance happenings that this conversation falls on today.
There really are not. There are no coincidences. Mm-hmm. I was having a really powerful conversation just yesterday, about the impact that my latest email to my list had. I don't know if you saw that email, but it was pretty powerful. I was talking pretty powerfully about menopause. So I was having this conversation about the impact of that email yesterday. Mm-hmm. And while I was having that conversation, one of the people that I coached last year wrote me her testimonial, and it popped up as a text message while I was having that conversation. And first, the testimonial brought me to tears, but second, there are no coincidences. Like I was meant to receive that right then while I was talking about the impact of my words. It was powerful. And now here we are, one day later, and you and I have known each other for a year, and I have the distinct pleasure of being able to talk about community with you right now.
Well, you probably already know this, but Friday is known as Freya Day in Norse mythology, and Freya is the goddess premier. So I love that it's Friday and we have the goddess energy going on Friday.
That's so cool. Talk more about that.
So Freya, when you start to examine lots of philosophies and disciplines, whether it's religious or mythological, they're all telling the same story using different names for the characters. So Freya was the goddess of fertility and love. And her kind of corollary in other disciplines would be like Venus or Aphrodite. But what's really cool about Freya, I actually have her in the windowsill. She's kind of got this badass goddess energy because she's got her chest plate, and she, aside from the love part of her, she was also known to go when warriors have fallen in battle to basically like bring their souls with her to some almost like a heaven-like place. And along with them, she would bring like their wife or girlfriend or loved ones. So especially when a warrior was fallen in battle, that was considered the highest honor. And that was the way you get to Valhalla. So I like that there's this duality with her where, she's gorgeous and, is showered in love and affection by anyone that comes near her. Yet, she's really powerful and mighty. So she really resonates with me. And I would tell you that it was her energy that I was channeling when I wrote my first book about the runes, which I hadn't even planned on it being a book. It really started with, I was studying Kabbalah, and part of my practice was I was to wake up, it was 4 a.m, bake my coffee, and then do the methodology for Kabbalah meditation, but then focus on one Hebrew letter and then write whatever I felt about it, like whatever I was getting. So after a month of that, I thought, why would I not do that with the runes? Because I love the runes and they're my jam. And then that's kind of how the book kind of unfolded. And I feel like it was her energy because it's just juicy, lovey, and people feel it. So I don't know. I hope, did I answer your question?
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I had not heard this story before. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
It's amazing sometimes how the entrance into something that's really meaningful to us can come through something that's commonly available. So for you, the entrance into Runa came from your study of the Kabbalah.
Yeah, and interestingly, when you map out the Hebrew letters, there's a matchup with the 24 Norse letters. And
Hmm.
similar to that, like I can find the alignment to each of the planets and also to the major arcana and tarot. So I'm like, wait a second, these are seemingly disparate systems, but they're actually all kind of doing the same thing. So I think it's just absolutely fascinating.
No kidding. Who'd have thought? Amazing. Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about the community we're talking about today?
For sure. So, and this is why it's so interesting that we met 1 year ago. 1 year ago, I started this before COVID, paused it, but then came back in a big way where I thought I want to create a healing for the healers community because my circle, they're intuitives, mediums, they're channelers, they're healed, they're working with energy, and they're just really amazing humans that want to elevate humanity. And so I thought, how often are we not receiving the healing back? We're just giving and giving and giving, and if especially if we have nurturing energy, we put ourselves last. So my concept was I'll create this private group and host a message circle in potluck the third Sunday of every month. And so that community, it's getting close to about 100. Because I invited you into it. But basically, the concept is I prepare something, a big something to share. And I feel like when you're so excited when you're preparing food, that vibration is in the food. And I'm just anticipating the people coming. I could feel the house is anticipating the energy of who's coming. Everyone brings a dish. So I always say it's my favorite day of the month because epic, amazing food is everywhere. But so people arrive around 11:30 or 12, and there's always someone that I've never met before that shows up because the community
Mm.
is growing. And
Hmm.
basically, we kind of last Sunday it was 20 people. We sit in a big circle in the living room and open with a light meditation. We call in archangels and our guides and all the others that are seen and unseen that are of the highest and greatest good to come be in the circle. And then someone volunteers to go first. And so let's say it's you. We would set a little timer, and I use the app that we created to scout all different sounds. So I'd say, Lucas, this is your sound. And it'd be like, or whatever your sound is, right? So then for 4 minutes, you say your name aloud. Everybody kind of taps into your energy, and then they're delivering an intuitive message. So for me, this is how channeling works for me. I don't want anyone taking control of my body. So I like to ask, and then I write what I'm getting, and then it's just flow, flow, flow. So I'll fold up the paper and pass it around to the person, to you, let's say. But basically, I always tell people if it's their first time, if you're in that vibration of all that, you're going to get stuff. And if you want to share it, please share it. If not, some people get shy. But we'll say,
Mm.
look, it could be a smell, a color, a sound, a song, like whatever you get, just deliver. And you don't have to know what it means because it's not for you. It's for that person. And so often we're all getting a similar theme about what that person needs to hear. Now you might say, I would like guidance on X in my life, but typically we just let it flow and what comes through. So then after your 4 minutes are up, then it goes to the next person. And if someone in the group says, I don't want to receive today, that's okay. But they're always, it's like, what do we need to hear? And it's maybe not always the question that we think to ask. So after about an hour and a half to an hour 45 minutes of everybody getting their message, we're all starving. And then we close the circle. Everyone stands up, holds hands. This part confuses people. We're always like left hand up, right hand down, because this is your receiving side and your giving side. And people are like, what? You know who the newbies are because they can't remember what their left hand is. But anyway, then we break bread, and it's everybody leaves here high as a kite. So people stay till about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I'm wiped out because that's moving a lot of energy. And I just love that new people show up. So we've had people fly in from Florida, drive up from Virginia, somebody who was
Wow.
here from New York City who created an app that matches you compatibility for dating based on astrology. So they're just the most interesting humans, and they're totally my soul family. I would do anything for these people, and you can feel that collective energy with this group.
Hmm. Amazing. Beautiful.
And we can't
Um,
wait for you to come. So you got to pick a Sunday, and third Sunday of the month. You tell me when you want to come.
we're gonna make it happen. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Here's what I love about that. When a lot of the ways that I've come up with some of the things I talk about, the five elements of the community, the five skills of adulthood, the infertility strategy of womanhood, a lot of the ways that I come up with that is by putting myself into a different place. I put myself into the place of the human animal, separate from the cultured, civilized man that I am here. And I try to imagine how the human animal existed, how the human animal thrived, how the human animal became the best version of themselves. And one of the things that I see, and I see it often, I see it regularly, it's very clear to me, is I see a council of elders, because I know that elders spend time and energy and effort, and maybe a lot of it, healing those around them. But working together in council, working together in community,
Mhm.
as a council of elders, they're healing each other. They're giving back to each other. And what you just described to me is the magic of this council of elders.
Mhm. It's interesting. They range in our youngest is 16, and I call him
Mhm.
Merlin because he's super powerful. And every time his messages come through, his mom and dad are doubled over laughing because they're like, he won't listen to us. But and then the oldest is probably in their 80s. So I love that. You could be 16 and be an elder, you know? So it is for sure when we move energy and send healing to others, we're absolutely healing ourselves. So I agree with that 100%.
Mm. And it's true. You can be
Mhm.
16 and be an elder. You absolutely can. I'm close friends with a gentleman in Florida whose son is 13, and it's actually quite beautiful. He called me up recently and asked me to design a coming of age, a becoming a man ceremony for him, and I was deeply touched. And here is this 13-year-old young man who's entering into adulthood, and yes, you can be 16 and be an elder.
I love it.
Amazing. Tell me how this community is a community.
Yeah. So, I would say that obviously, as with anything, there are folks that are really committed in doing their work and walking the talk. And then sometimes there's those that don't walk their talk. So, this community, I would say I'm very protective of it because I want it to be a completely safe and sacred space. And I don't want to bring someone in and then have to say, I'm sorry. I just want to avoid that completely. So there's a collective understanding that, we want people that are doing the work. They're working on themselves. Like we always say, you can only bring someone to the point of healing that you've healed yourself. So that I would say when we come together, everybody feels safe. Sometimes there's tears, but also they know they're never alone. So we use the private Facebook group when someone's in the hospital or someone says, this person in my life has this going on. Can everyone send energy? And we've seen remarkable things like people get released from a hospital stay days earlier than they were supposed to. And with doctors scratching their head going, we have no medical reason to keep you anymore, even though we can't explain why. So that's really cool. We've had people had test results where they've had a degenerative lung problem that will never get better. It's all about slowing it getting worse. And then doctors going, this doesn't make sense. It's as if, like we can't even explain this. So that is really amazing. So I like, we don't need that like clinical scientific evidence, but when we get it, we just laugh and we're like, we're so powerful together when we work together. So I think it's that people are comfortable being vulnerable. They're just giving and loving. And if you come for the first time and you're one of 20, you will leave feeling like these people have been in your life your whole life and you're going to stay
Mm.
connected to them. So that I just love that. And when it came to me last Sunday, the message was for me. The very first thing the person said, she was in tears, but she was getting the message and she just said, they want you to know, thank you for what you've created here. Like, so, which I'm like, I'm just a service. That's how you and I met. I was like, saw a post, saw your crystal necklace and was like, I need to send him something.
This
So I,
one.
Yeah. So remember, I said, can I please send you who makes your jewelry? Because I could feel it was personal. And then I said, I'd like to send you something. And so and that's when you and I first talked live. I'm like, I trust my gut, and there's something that tells me we're supposed to connect. And let's feel our way around in the dark and figure out why. So we were trying to figure out the why, and I love that you were so open to it. But I would say this knowing that there's a community that has your back no matter what, it gives you the confidence to just spread your wings. And so when I think about who I am, who I was 12 months ago when I first met you on Zoom to now, I just feel unstoppable. I just feel like you cannot fail. And I don't feel judged. I know that no matter what, this is a group that we always say there's no crazy here. I mean, no holes barred. Everything is fair game, and people could have conversations here that they probably wouldn't have at the office cooler, kind of thing, with spirituality and intuition and healing and all that good stuff.
Amazing. Yes. Let me talk about that from a not yet established psychology perspective.
Okay.
I've said this before. I will say it again. This may be a hill I'm willing to die on. This may be a hill I'm willing to die on. We are not human alone. We're only human together. And what that means is unlike tigers, we're not tigers. We are a predator animal, but we're not tigers. We actually only exist in this world as a member of a community. We only succeed in this world as a member of a community. And our nervous system knows it. Our brain knows it. Our basic, what I like to call our firmware, right? The embedded software that makes the hardware work, our firmware knows it. It knows that we only succeed together. That is our magic. Our magic is that we succeed together. Our magic is that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. In community, we are astonishing. Our superpower is community. And until we accept a community, until we accept ourselves as part of a community, until we make space for ourselves and within ourselves for community, as long as we continue to be alone and not truly fully human, we're not secure. We are not capable of being fully confident. Even though I'm surrounded by such astonishing abundance, I know that I can go to the supermarket right now and get all the food that I need. My nervous system is wired, right? My firmware says I must be in community. Now, that doesn't mean I need to be able to touch people. That's not the way our firmware works. Wake up and smell the world, right? Our body knows that perception is just perception. So as long as I know I'm in community, then I also know I can get food. I also know I can get shelter. I also know that I am safe. And that's when you can be truly confident.
For sure. I look back and I wonder, how did I move through the world without this group? I would go to my move would be, if I felt, I would wait till I was hanging by a thread,
Yeah.
and then I would go to the Catskills and stay in a yurt and just be off the grid for a few days. And then I would come back super recharged. And then I was kind of like, why do I wait to that point where I'm at my breaking point? So that year I was studying Kabbalah. Then I thought, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm making my own version of Shabbat Friday at sundown, and I'll come back online whenever I feel like it on Saturday. But I want to write, I want to focus, I want to meditate, I want to smell my incense, I want to be utterly alone. And then that was filling my bucket. So I guess I kind of had some tools along the way. But then once I started this and it kind of took on a life of its own, it's like communion for me to be with these people. And sometimes at 4 weeks feels like it's too long. Like, when are they all coming back? And we have a beautiful, I told you offline, a beautiful sand fire pit in the back. So we do fire ceremonies too when the weather's nice. And now just huge giant crystals are showing up, and there's something that's happened here. We fenced in the yard, which we waited a long time to do. But even that, it's just the sanctuary has been created here. So I just love it. And I'm so grateful that I get to just be the den mama and be a member. I mean, there is no leader when we're all together. I just create the space and put out the ice bucket.
Yeah. I love it. There is a leader. There is a leader. It's not necessarily you, and you're 100% right about that. The way community works is that a leader arises to help the community move forward towards the next thing it needs to move forward to. It doesn't have to be the community builder or the creator to be the leader. Anyone can be the leader. I love it. Yes. What you're describing sounds like magic to me. I want a council of elders everywhere I go all the time.
Connecticut Council.
Yeah, I
It's
can't
funny.
wait. It's gonna be so much fun.
First time they walk in and they're like, what is this place? Like they could feel like it's palpable. You can feel the energy in the room. And I'm just so grateful. And I can't wait to see what it evolves into in year two. Like what else, what more, So we'll see. This will be an interesting one for me this Sunday. I set an intention, and this is kind of, I guess Runa is going to be our thread through this. At the end of the calendar year, I created this crystal grid and I put specific runes in it. And I set this intention that 2023, and this is coming through in the message circles to me every month. They're telling me like, get ready. It's about to go big, big, big. So I'm like, all right, then I'm going to be clear about what I want. I want achievement and abundance above and beyond my wildest, wildest dreams, because of all the things I do, I want 70% of my time and energy to be Runa. Like it's her year. This has been a 5-year coming thing. And so, as you know, like I have some retailers where my jewelry goes, but I also stood up a Etsy store. And so it was kind of running in the background. I don't do a ton on social media other than LinkedIn. And I know I've got to lean in and do that, like we've talked about offline. But all of a sudden, the strike of January 1, all of a sudden, I've done now almost 50% of my sales in the last 2.5 weeks of what all last year looked like. So it's blowing up. And the only thing that changed is me saying, setting that grid and setting the intention. So instead of selling one product a week, I'm selling 1 to 2 a day. And so now I'm like, I need to get creative here because I'm already behind production wise. So I ordered a bunch of the materials I need. Some things have to be imported. And then I went to my town Facebook page and was like, casting call, calling crafty moms. And so I said, come to my dining room table. Here's what I'll pay. We'll sit, we'll create. And I had some takers. So tomorrow will be or Sunday will be my production line because I need to like gen up what I'm doing. I'll give you a little spoiler alert of what's coming. I've been trying
Yes, please.
I've been trying to pull this concept down, and now I finally am getting to the prototype phase. So basically, the idea is you have this clear locket, and you have crystal chips, and you have all the 24 runes. So this is the rune that represents breakthrough. This is a pretty popular one when I make my bracelets. When you're trying to solve through something and you want that breakthrough aha moment. So this one happens to be paired with, it looks like it's
red quartz, rose quartz.
It's more orange. So it's probably, I'm not sure what that one is. Maybe mahogany jasper possibly. This is another one this is my favorite rune. It's Wunyo, represents joy, and it's paired with purple amethyst. So anyway, but my thought is, how can you have this wearable artifact that every day you can change? You might say, today I want the energy of warrior because I want to be fully present and I don't want to worry and I don't want to anticipate. I just want to be still. Or I want protection because I'm traveling. So I'm a left brain, right brain person. So part of what I love about Etsy, it's a real-time experiment. So anything I put up there, I'm able to see, like this right now is the big hot item. So I made these cards and they've got all the rune symbols on them. So I go online and I'm like, okay, in the last 30 days, over 200 people viewed this item, and a couple dozen people have it favorited or in their cart. And I'm like, interesting. So then I start playing with price elasticity. But what I've noticed is the most popular theme, it's around protection. So like that's the rune for protection. I don't know what rune I sent you, but every time I do anything and it's got a little poem about protection, it's selling out like that. So part of me is like, okay, I write the little poems that kind of describe what the rune's about, but I'm like, is it the symbol of protection? Is it the idea of being watched over and being safe? Is it the words that I'm using that brought the idea to life? I'm a packaging snob. I think I always tell you that. I think the packaging's sexy,
I love your packaging.
Then the latest is the Valentine's. I think I texted you these pictures maybe. So then now there's a Valentine's line where it's got a little pop of red. And this particular one is about strengthening love. So here I put a little rune poem on the back.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, the more I meditate, and I feel like the more your heart is open, like I'm just shown things. I see things. I'm like, I can create that. That's really cool. So I think being in this energy of unbridled, like just let me be unleashed and like let's let it rip. Like so, and let's see. I think it's going to be an epic year. Sorry, I'll talk about runes all day if you don't stop me. So I better get reeled in here.
I'm big on letting people get into a flow and seeing where that flow goes.
I never know. I never know.
Yeah. It was a lightning bolt and a J. And I think
Willow. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, and J? The let J. Jera is the one for harvest, fertility or harvest. But if the lightning bolt that looks like an S, that's the Willow, and that's like life
Yep.
force. And that one is how that's actually how I so when people ask me, how did you get into the runes? When I first met my first business partner, she had been an intuitive medium since childhood. I say to her, Rita, we'd open our wellness center, and I'm like, Rita, I keep seeing this weird symbol. So it looks like a jagged S, and I'm like, I can't stop seeing it. I was so not even close to as connected as I am now. I was a little neophyte in this space. So she closes her eyes, she taps in, and she's like, runes. Like, you're going to read she's like, you're going to start, wait, you're going to remember the runes. You're going to do rune reading for people. Now, I was newly out of corporate. I was like hell, I will. So when I looked it up, and I saw Sowilo, and I saw it meant like translated to the word sun. I had named the business Solstice Strategy Partners. And when people would ask me, and there's a sun spray in the logo, and people would say, why solstice? I'm like, I don't know. I just know it's solstice. I had no idea. And then little do I know, okay, so here's the runes. And for a year, I was like, I'm not doing that. She's crazy. But when I finally broke down and bought my first book and read, within just looking at the one pager, in the open book, within 10 minutes, I'm like, I got it. I know them. I remember them. And then I didn't even know how to read them, but I would cast them. And it turns out what I was doing is exactly a old method of how people would do it. So it just so now I'm like, the more you trust it, you get more, you get more, you get more. So, I mean, it probably happens to you too. Somebody pops in your head and then they text you, or I always like to use my superpower of moving meetings I don't want to go to. So if I'm like, oh, I have a 3:00 on a Friday, like, oh, that's okay. They're going to move it. And then I get so sorry. Can we move the meeting? Yes, we can. So it's fun to like use your superpowers. I mean, we can go big, or where actually there's a person that I created a crystal grid, but my two besties, the gentleman has leukemia. And so we created a grid. They were moving in energy, working with him. And we're waiting for his next blood work to come in, because what he said is his white blood cell count was at 6,500. No, 7,500. He needs to be at 6,000. So I'm literally writing, this is the part of the next book. It's going to be all these vignettes of how we're working with energy, and for me, how the runes weave in and out of there. So kind of the storytelling, but also there's how to in it as well. So that's one. So that's a big example of working with energy. Or you can get the most epic parking spot every time, or you can cancel meetings with your mods. And that's the gamut, right? So
how does that start to change when you do it as a community?
It amplifies the power, right? It for sure does. And then you realize, like, things get over-engineered all the time. It literally can be at the speed of thought to influence an outcome. And I think that's the big thing that as part of our community we teach each other, is that suspend belief, because we're programmed to have limitations and think things are not possible. So there's this Romanian intuitive who I can't wait for you to meet. Her name is Argentina. I buy all my glasses from her, and she's like, oh, Delanea, $2 million. And she's flailing her arms, and she's like, I don't know. It can't come out of my head. And she's telling me $2 million is coming my way. And I'm like, I don't care where it comes from. Instead of we don't have to figure out the how, right? So hopefully by the time you come here, it'll be like that scene in Indecent Proposal where there's just dollar bills all over, and I'll have you roll around. Sorry.
I'm ready. Get your camera out. I'm doing it.
That'd be hilarious. So
I like to say that community is a force multiplier. Mm-hmm. So if you've got a thing, if you've got a purpose, if you've got something you are and or need to focus on, and the community is willing to focus on that with you, and that's the key. If that becomes the purpose of the community, even for just a short period of time, The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Like a human body. If you look at any of our cells all by themselves, they are remarkable, but they aren't a human body. You put them all together and all of a sudden we become this thing. It's amazing. You start putting human bodies together, it's a force multiplier.
For sure.
How do you and your council of elders how do you and your council of elders use force multiplier to do amazing things?
Yeah, well, it literally is as simple as going into the private group. So now that you're a member, and I said, welcome, if you say, hey, this is my, bat symbol, like I need this form of help, everyone will jump on it and they'll be sending and moving energy for whatever it is you need. So
Mm.
for me, it'll come through in that group chat. I'll get private text messages, hey, actually, I'm not in it because I'm with you right now, but there is a person down in Maryland who is part of our soul family who relocated. He does a lot of work. It turns out he's literally a nuclear engineer, puts stuff in
Mm.
space, but he also is this brilliant silversmith and he works almost exclusively with opals and makes these gorgeous, gorgeous pieces of jewelry. He sent a text
Mm.
to me this morning and was asking for a specific kind of help. And I was like, we're going to get Henry and Rita, the two I mentioned, on a Zoom with you, but I'm going to create a grid first because the idea is if he has an attachment or negative energy or something in him that needs to be, they scan, clear, heal, and seal, right? Working with the angelic realm. Then once he's clear and open and his heart's open, then this abundance grid that I created, like it's supercharged. Like it's gonna work, but we have to release that resistance that he's not even aware that he has. And I feel like a lot of times when people are working with this idea of abundance, they're blocking themselves because it comes down to this conscious or unconscious feeling of not being worthy. So part of
Mm.
what we're learning from each other is we're seeing patterns in the data. So now we're able to jump right to what we need to get to, and there doesn't have to be all pomp and circumstance. We always say, whether it's God or however you think about where the energy is coming from, God doesn't need a lot of time. Like God doesn't need an hour on a Reiki table. God needs the speed of thought. And if anything, it's more you're holding space and letting that person know. You don't just be like, healed, look, let me know how you're doing. You spend a little time with them. But did I answer
It's
your
a
question again? I keep going off on rants.
it does. I'm going to use different language. So my wife is studying to become a naturopathic doctor, and in naturopathy, they talk about first removing the barriers to healing. That's what I'm hearing when you describe this is the a big piece of what you're doing. You're as a council, you're remembering where those barriers tend to show up. So you look there first to remove the barriers to healing.
For sure. For sure. Actually, I feel like that's why I feel like I'm Delanea 2.0 this year because one of the methodologies I experienced at the end of last year, which I think is what cleared this way for like takeoff, is family constellations. And I don't know if you and I have ever talked about that, but our Kabbalah teacher facilitates family constellations where basically you bring your statement or issue. So mine was, why do I feel judged when I'm living my truth? Like that was my statement. And basically everyone that comes, nobody knows the statement but me and her. So she opens us up with a meditation where we're visualizing our ancestors, like all of our father's side and ancestors on the right, mother's side on the left, bring them all in. Then once we open, she writes on a paper, only I see it. So she writes your soul, your truth, your shadow, your moon, which is your emotion. And then last minute, my mom got entered into the story. So then she says, okay, choose. So I said, I look around the room. I'm like, so-and-so, will you be my number one? Will you be my number two? Will you be my number three? Nobody knows what they are. And nobody knows what the issue, only the Kabbalah teacher and I know. So anyway, long story short, this whole scene, they're supposed to just act on what they're feeling, not it's not channeling. It's the first person. She's like, number one, feel free to get up and move in the room where you feel that you should be. So this very gentle personality gets up and she's like this, and she's looking out the window, and she's like, how do you feel? And she's like, I'm pissed. She's like, I don't want anything to do with you guys. I am so mad. And we're like, what? So she had all this energy. The next person comes, goes and stands almost off in the corner. Like, how do you feel? Like, I'm so happy. I just want to be by myself. I want to create. And then they don't know what they're acting out. So anyway, it goes on for about 20 minutes. And then how are they interacting with each other? And I'm watching this whole thing and I'm like, mind blown. So for me, what kind of got released, that was the idea is we're holding these ancestral things that I might have hangups that have nothing to do with anything with me in my lifetime, but it goes back 3 generations on my mom's side, right? So how do you want to break the cycle? So for me, what ended up getting released was I'm normally like a jacked up solar plexus person, like go, 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 get it done. I never not get it done. They always have to dial down my solar plexus. But once I released this, not even conscious, like anger that I was holding towards my mom, that tied to motherhood, that tied to my grandmother, Polish grandma raising me. I'm like, I'm not an angry person. I bury my anger. I hide it when I'm hurt. And then all of a sudden, all of this comes to my awareness. And I'm like, whoa, that all ends up getting released. I journal, I follow up with Laura. It kind of, but then the weird thing is, I'm like, oh, everything felt like my emotions were 10x whatever the emotion. Someone cuts me off at traffic, I'd be like, rah! I'm like, why am I getting so triggered? So it's like I had to learn, well, how do I move through the world now that I'm coming from my heart and I'm just being open, and now I feel what things feel like instead of tamping them down because I'm secretly holding this anger for 47 years. How did I even know that? I did not know that. But this methodology kind of released it. But this all ties together where it's all, if we're coming from our heart, we can do absolutely anything. So if it was my solar plexus driving me, it was my alpha, my confidence. And then all of a sudden when that was gone, I'm like, how do I operate now? You know what I mean? Like I'm super out, like, what? Now I'm heart? I'm mushy gushy Freya, like lovey dovey, like, huh? This is uncomfortable, but I'm kind of back to normal now. Well, I don't back to normal. The settled in with this new energy of how I'm supposed to move forward. So, and a lot's changing, like I told you with Runa.
Awesome. Amazing. Let me anchor for some people who are listening to this and hear things like ancestral trauma and have a hard time understanding that or connecting with it. That here are the top 5 fears in humanity. The actual top 5 fears in humanity in order are public speaking, number 1. It is the number 1 most common fear. Death, number 2. Now, death happens to everyone, so that one I get. Public speaking, number 1. Death, number 2. Number 3, sharks. Number 4, snakes. Number 5, spiders. This is actually not a joke. Now, out of those 5 things, we take death away. The 4 remaining, do you know how many people die every year from public speaking?
How many?
It's not 0, but it's small. I mean, they get up. They have a pre-existing heart condition. They're super stressed. They die on stage. Like that happens. But the number is vanishingly small. How many people die every year from sharks? Less than 200. How many people die every year from snakes? Less than 200. You have a 7,000% higher probability of dying from a lightning bolt than you do from a shark. And yet, shark is in the top 5 and lightning bolt is not. And we haven't even started talking about things like airplane crashes or the car or a tree branch falling off a tree while you're walking down the street. Like, no, people die from sharks. But let's be realistic here. The probability of anyone dying from sharks is near 0. And yet, it's in the top 5 most common fears. Snakes and spiders, too. Why? Ancestral trauma. It's not a joke. We are not genetically coded to be afraid of sharks. There's no reason for us to be genetically coded to be afraid of sharks. You know what we are genetically coded for? To remember the things that are dangerous. Mm-hmm. That's why sharks, snakes, and spiders. So for people that have a hard time connecting with ancestral trauma, like that's built in. I'm not afraid of sharks. We are not genetically coded to be afraid of sharks, but somebody in your recent history died from a shark, so you're now afraid of them. That's what we're genetically coded for.
100%. So, and cellular memory, there's documented cases that under hypnosis, people can relay entire conversations that their mom had when they were in vitro. That blows my mind. So yeah, and even at a cellular level, we know, well, maybe my dad wanted a boy, not a girl. Like those are things we know, and we don't even know we're carrying it around. So I would say that family constellations is not for the faint-hearted. It's probably it probably is the most aggressive punch in the face version of healing that I've ever been through, because you're in it.
That is quite a description.
But that's how I roll. Like that's why.
Oh yeah, punch in the face. Sign me up.
Well, if you're gonna go big, right? Go big or go home. You're gonna get this.
Yeah, there you go. Go big or go home.
Years in therapy. Let's just clear it in a weekend and move on.
Sometimes that's just what you need, is you need to trip and fall and land on your damn face in the dirt.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. Wow. Powerful. And let's bring this back to community, because we started there. We started with Runa. We started with community. We started with your council of elders. Let's bring this back to Runa, community, and your council of elders, your 80 council of elders.
Yeah, I think my one word for this year with all that you just said is courage. Courage. So my next frontier, you and I, the last conversation we had, it's me getting comfortable with this idea of, okay, if you're going to do this in a big way, there's going to be more people watching, and you might have uncontrolled and unplanned for interactions that take you out of your comfort zone. So for me, it's never, my fear has never been the fear of failure. It's more the fear of, well, if it blows up and it's wildly successful, what if I lose the connectivity to the people in my life right now? And I don't want them to feel like I'm leaving them behind, and then you spin out. So it's probably like the weirdest, is like the inverse of what it should be. But for me, watching you live life socially and putting it out there and just casting the wide net, and you're going to draw in the people that are vibrationally meant to be working with you. I feel like I'm short of breath even thinking about that, but courage is going to be my new frontier for this year. Like, I'm going to keep doing it and get comfortable with the unknownness of where it's all going to go. Knowing I've got my elders, like, they'll never not be there,
That's beautiful.
Now that I said it out loud, I'm scared. I just freaked myself out.
I hear you. You're right. It's a lot. It's a lot to wrap your mind around. It's a lot to accept. I like to close up my interviews with 3 questions. The first one is, for those people who have been just absolutely electrified by what you have to say, how can they find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. I love to write in general. So LinkedIn is one way. My Instagram is called Runa Reading, and that's
Runa Reading
book page. Yep. And then Etsy store is called Runa and Luna.
Runa and Luna.
Yeah, and I just love when people reach out. I mean, I get a lot of random stuff because of the other businesses, but every now and then something breaks through to me, and I'm like, I have to connect this person, and I don't know why. So if it's about Runa, listen, all you have to say is, I loved your book. Game over. I'm putting your hands. So that would be that.
Awesome. Question 2. This is a curveball. It's a zinger.
Okay.
What question have I not asked you that you wish I had?
When can I come to Connecticut?
There you go. Sure. That.
Yeah.
What else? Really?
I don't know. I'm used to being the one asking all the questions. So I'm not I'm often telling other people's stories. So it's not my norm to have the mic. Remember when you said, have idea for anybody coming on my show? I'm like, yeah, this person and this person. And you said, why not you? I wasn't ready. So you Jedi mind tricked me into being ready. So here I am.
Thanks for joining us this week on Elements of Community. Make sure to visit our website, elementsofcommunity.us, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or via RSS, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode.